everyone, Chris here, and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to talk to you about the books I read between March 16th and March 22nd. First up, I read Onward Grounds by Cleo Coyle, and I gave this book 3 stars. In this book, we follow Claire, who works at a coffee shop, and when she comes into work one day, she finds an employee at the bottom of the basement stairs in rough shape. While the police think it's an accident, Claire's gut is telling her it was something more sinister, so she decides to investigate on her own. So this wasn't my favorite cozy mystery. There was a lot of talk about how to make coffee or coffee-related drinks, and I found that part to be boring. I don't care what makes a good latte or espresso or whatever. So that part of it I kind of tuned out of. However, the mystery aspect I did enjoy, and I thought it was interesting to see how Claire went about figuring things out, as a lot of what we could see certainly pointed to this girl accidentally tripping and falling down the stairs. But I like that Claire trusted her gut and said, no, there's just something off about the scene of the murder, and it made her certain that there was more to this story than met the eye. I do think I will continue on with the series and give some of the other books a try because I did like the mystery aspect. I'm hoping that we get less coffee talk as the books go forward because, like I said, that part didn't interest me in the slightest. Next up, I read 'Twas the Night Before Christmas, and I gave this book 4.5 stars. This is the second book in the Christmas Tree Farm mystery series. In this book, Holly's friend becomes the #1 suspect in a murder after she was seen arguing with the victim shortly before his death. Despite knowing that she shouldn't get involved, Holly just can't seem to help herself, as she feels she needs to prove that her friend couldn't possibly have done this. I really love this series. I love seeing how Holly goes about gathering clues and trying to prove that her loved ones didn't murder anyone, because in the first book she's trying to prove it wasn't her dad, and in this book she's trying to prove it wasn't one of her close friends. I also really enjoyed the mystery aspect of the novel and trying to figure out who actually committed the murder, and I definitely didn't see it coming. So that definitely makes this a fave mystery book in my book when they can confuse me at the end. Also, this book, like book 1, is set at Christmas time, so I really love the environment. It gives me real Christmassy vibes, and I really enjoy that. This is definitely a series I can see myself rereading at Christmas time, as, like I said, it gives me good Christmassy vibes, and I think the third book comes out later this year. So maybe I will reread both of these and check out the third book in December of this year. Next up, I read Long Way Down by Jason Reynolds, and I give this book 4.5 stars. So this is a book told in verse, and we follow Will, whose older brother Sean has just been murdered. Most of this book takes place in the 60 seconds Will is in the elevator, riding down to the lobby and struggling with whether he is going to kill the man who he believes killed his brother. Given that this was told in verse, it was a very quick read. However, that didn't make it any less impactful. It was really interesting getting to be in Will's head as he kind of struggled with this decision. He's been brought up to believe there is a code, and that code says you get revenge, but at the same time, is he positive, 100% positive, that this is the guy that killed his brother? And when push comes to shove, can he pull that trigger? And it is fascinating seeing how Jason Reynolds tells the story of Will struggling to make that decision. The only reason this isn't 5 stars is I wish there had been just a little bit more at the end to kind of wrap things up. I really just wanted a little bit more, but other than that, this was a fantastic book, and I'm really glad I picked it up. Next up, I read Truthwitch by Susan Dennard, and I gave this book 4.5 stars. In this book, we follow Safi, who is a truth witch. This means she can tell if somebody is telling the truth when they speak to her. Very few people know that she's a truth witch, as in her world, it can be super dangerous to be a truth witch, as they tend to either be captured to be used as a tool or killed outright so they can't be used as a tool by an enemy. She and her friend end up being chased by a blood witch, which is a person who has the ability to control and manipulate somebody's blood, their own blood, and has the ability to scent somebody else's blood. This makes it very hard for Safi and Iz to stay one step ahead of the blood witch. On top of that, there are others who are out to get Safi, as her world is on the brink of war, and having a truth witch on your side could definitely help in the coming war. I really enjoyed this book. I like getting to see Safi and Iz's points of view and seeing how each of them worked to stay one step ahead of the Blood Witch and everybody else who was out to get them. I loved seeing their relationship and how much they cared about each other and what they were willing to go through to protect one another. I really enjoyed the politics of this book and getting to see all of the political maneuvering that was going on. It was also interesting watching Safi and Iz try to figure out who they could trust outside of each other, because just because Safi has the ability to tell when somebody is telling the truth doesn't mean that she always knows who can be trusted, because there's a lot of ways to get around that. I also really liked where we ended off, and I'm looking forward to picking up the next book in the series. Next up, I read What We Don't Talk About by Charlotte Christensen, and I gave this book 5 stars. Adam and Farai are in an interracial relationship. After dating for 2 years, Farai finally convinces Adam to bring her home to meet his parents. Once there, Adam's parents say some things that make Farai feel uneasy and uncomfortable, and when she raises these concerns to Adam, he downplays it, and it makes Farai wonder if this relationship is right for her. I loved this book. I loved getting to see Farai finally get to meet Adam's parents and it not going the way she hoped it would, and struggling with the things she was feeling because of the way his parents were acting, and struggling with how she felt that Adam wasn't saying anything and was just letting his parents kind of get away with what they were doing, even though Farai knew what they were doing wasn't okay. It is a very short read, but it is a very good read and a very important read, because I think if you were going to be in an interracial relationship, I think this is a really good depiction of some of the struggles that could come from that relationship. I also love the art style in this book. I thought that added to the story, as the facial expressions of the characters also helped to inform how things were being said and how things were being taken, and I really enjoyed that. This is a really fantastic book, and I would highly recommend you pick it up if it sounds interesting. Next up, I read Cemetery Boys by Aidan Thomas, and I gave this book 5 stars. In this book, we follow Yadriel, whose family is struggling to accept his true gender. With the help of his cousin, Maritza, he plans to show his family he really is a Brujo. He decides the best way to do this is to find the ghost of his murdered cousin and set him free. Unfortunately, he ends up getting the wrong ghost. Enter Julian, who is not just going to quietly let Yadriel send him on. He wants to know what happened to him and to check on his friends before he goes. Yadriel has no choice to agree, so he sets out to help Julian. Along the way, he grows attached to Julian and realizes that sending him on is going to be a lot harder than he originally thought. So I absolutely adored this book. I loved getting to see Yadriel and how he struggled with his family and how they struggled accepting him as he is. I really related to his frustration that his family refused to see him for who he truly was. I love the relationship between him and his cousin, as she has accepted Yadriel from day one and has his back no matter what, and I thought that was such an amazing, important relationship. I liked getting to see the adventures he went on with Julian as he tried to kind of fulfill Julian's last wishes so that Julian would let him send him on, all while trying to keep this from his family because he wanted to prove that he could do this on his own and really was a Brujo. I just really loved this book, and I love the way that Aidan Thomas writes, and I will definitely be reading more books from Aidan Thomas in the future. And lastly, I read Thejumbies by Tracy Baptiste, and I gave this book 4 stars. This is a twist on the classic Haitian folktale, The Magic Orange Tree. In this book, we follow a girl named Corinne, who really isn't scared of anything. One night, she's running in the forest and spots a pair of glowing eyes and wonder if the mythical Jumbies are actually real. She always thought they were a story made up by parents to scare their kids. Then, a strange woman shows up in town and begins to spend lots of time with Corinne's father. Corinne feels there's something not right with the situation and must team up with her friends to get to the bottom of who this woman is and what she really wants. I really enjoyed this book. I really liked Corinne. She was a very strong protagonist. I like getting to see the friends she made and how they started to work together to unravel the mystery of what was going on. I can also relate to the idea of not believing something is real because it's a story that she believed parents told their kids to scare them, as when I was a kid, my dad used to tell me if I wasn't in by dark, a gargoyle would take me away unless I was with somebody who was over the age of 13. So I feel that is really relatable and is definitely something I think parents do. So I can totally see why, as she got older, she was like, yeah, that's not actually real. But then to find out that it might be, I thought was really interesting. I really enjoyed Corinne and her friends and their story and how they went about getting to the bottom of who this woman is and what she wanted. And I think I will definitely be checking out the next book in this series. So these are some of the books I've read recently. Have you read any of these books? If so, feel free to talk to me about them in the comments section below. If you've made it this far in the video, leave me a ball of yarn emoji, like this video, and subscribe to my channel, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye!